welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 137, and the title of this episode is Here is the Secret on the Economic Collapse. And today we see the market way down. It's down about 226 points, but gold and silver moving back up. So what does this mean? The Fed will have to do something to push the market back up. And they will also have to push gold back down if it goes any higher to stay around 1,300. And we will have to see if someone else from the Fed comes out and says something, because last time they did, the market went back up. Today we got some news about earnings on very big companies, and the market went down. So, didn't matter. They were using the high-frequency trading, the plunge protection team, and they just couldn't get the markets back up. In the Asian markets, the Nikkei is also down by quite a bit. It's around 297 points. So, we see things are occurring. We have a lot of trouble in the Middle East, and because of this, we're seeing other things occur. And let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, India is banning gold coin imports. Since the Fed began discussing taper, the rupee has weakened almost 15%. And what they're doing is the import of gold in the form of coins and medallions is now prohibited. And resident Indians now can only send out of the country $75,000 each year, down from $200,000. The bank said on its website, and the money cannot be used to buy property. And the Congress-led government has been desperate to tame inflation, especially of food, and they're trying to revive the economy. So they are heading into some trouble. They're trying to control everything, just like every other country is doing the same thing. The Eurozone and the countries in the European nations are doing the same thing, and they have high unemployment. The U.S. is trying to control everything and keep all eyes on the stock market as best they can before everything just completely falls apart. Okay. Now, we know the stock market fell, 200 points or so. The dollar plunged and metals went up. And, we're seeing many things happen. Cisco is reporting that they're going to cut 4,000 jobs, which is 5% of their workforce. We heard from Macy's yesterday that they missed their revenues. And we're hearing from Walmart now that they are missing their revenue. And we had this way back in, I think it was like February, March, maybe a little bit, around that time period, where Walmart also missed their benchmarks, and they blame that on the tax refunds, and people weren't getting their tax refunds. So what are they going to blame this on now? What they're going to blame it on is maybe the weather. Who knows? They blame everything on the weather. But Walmart is the thermometer of the American economy. This is where the middle to lower class people shop, and it is a barometer of how well the economy is doing, because they do run a very tight ship over there, and they know exactly what they're doing, and they've been profitable for quite a long time. And now we're seeing their revenues drop, just like we're seeing other retail stores heading the same way. Again, I'll bring up the USA Today article, which is back in February, where they said many stores are closing. We're seeing it, now. I mean, these were the higher end stores like Best Buy, Radio Shack, Barnes and Noble, and many other, GameStop, those type of stores. But now we're starting to see it hit in the discount world. Walmart, Costco, Max, Office Depot were reporting slower revenue during their busy season of back to school. And we're seeing this happen all over the place. Now, I know we talked a lot about unemployment, and the U.S. Department of Labor, they come out with their statistics that we're down to 7.4%. The Fed sees this as a positive outlook that jobs are going to drop even further, and it looks like since the economy is doing much, much, much better, we're going to start tapering. And other financial institutions and other people have come out saying that tapering is going to start in September. Some websites even have countdown clocks that they're counting down to, I think it was September 9th or so. But let's just break down the unemployment rates just for men here. Ages 16 to 19, they're at 28% unemployment. And this is the government numbers. This is the manipulated, recalculated numbers from the government since they changed it back in 1994. Ages 20 to 24, it's at 15%. Now, these are the people coming out of college who cannot find work. Ages 25 to 34 is 7.4%, which they're saying it is right now. 35 to 44, 5.8. 45 to 54, 5.8, and 55 and above is 5.5. So we can see the people who already have work that are solid in their jobs. Let's use that term loosely, because no one is secure in their jobs, but had their jobs for a while and they're still working. The unemployment, according to the government's calculations, is not as high as those people trying to get work coming out of school or trying to get part-time work in restaurants, in retail stores, which it's very difficult to get jobs in retail stores since they're closing stores and they're laying off people. And now with the addition of Cisco laying off people, we also heard that JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, they are laying off people in their mortgage departments, hundreds of people. And we also heard that IBM was going to be laying off around 10,000 or so people, and many other companies are starting to look to lay off people. And we can't forget that I forgot her name, Meredith Whitney, I believe it is, also came out with a report that come this fall, early winter, Wall Street will be laying off around 100,000 people. So this will decimate the entire unemployment calculation of what they're using right now. And from what everything that's going on right now, it looks like we're heading into something that's really, really, really bad. And they know this. And this is why they're trying to prop everything up right now until we hit that fall mark. And you have to remember, if we look at patterns again, back in the Great Depression, October was the time frame. 2008, October was the time frame. And here we are coming up to October of 2013, and it looks like they're doing the same type of thing. And yesterday I did mention some jobs that are there are layoffs coming, and we're looking at Pratt and Whitney, another 400 jobs. We're looking at Northrop Grumman in Connecticut are cutting more jobs. H.J. Heinz, 600 jobs. We're looking at Micron Technologies, 1,500. Vermont Casting Group, 100. Career Education Corp, 480. Ormet Corp Hanimal Plant, 200. And the list goes, J.P. Morgan Chase, which is the mortgage department, 450 in South Carolina. And AOL, 500 we're looking at here. And Wells Fargo Home Mortgage, that's 763. We're looking at Nokia, Siemens, 8,500. So, for them to say that things are looking positive and better, it seems like more and more companies are laying off here and there. And we actually did see something like this prior to 2008 crash where a lot of companies, I know the company that I work for, started to lay off people in August, and I was laid off at this time, and it wasn't 100, it wasn't 10 people. They laid off approximately 1,200 people before the crash in October. And now we're starting to see layoffs continue again. Now, we're also seeing another sign that the U.S. consumer bankruptcies jump by most in 3 years. So consumers who, again, if they're unemployed or underemployed and they can't get by and the credit card debt is too high and they can't make ends meet, they go into bankruptcy, just like Detroit. And it wipes your credit clean depending on which bankruptcy you go through. And it's either like I think it's chapter 7 or 13 for people. Not too sure on that, but I know there's two of them where you have absolutely no work whatsoever, and they wipe a lot of your bankruptcy clean. And then the other one is if you have some type of job and you can make some payments, they wipe some part clean. And people can comment on that and correct me if I have it backwards or things like that. But they're seeing a rise in U.S. consumer bankruptcy. It is another sign that things are not going well, because when things are going well, bankruptcies do not increase because people have great jobs. They're bringing in enough money to pay their bills. The only times you see bankruptcies, just like after 2008, where bankruptcy skyrocketed because of people losing their work or not having work, and this trend continued, and we're starting to see it pick up again. And also, we can't forget about the housing market, where mortgage applications are plunging. Because of that, we're seeing sales decline. We're seeing new construction decline, home furnishings and gardening supplies, the sale of those declining. Home builders are saying that traffic is starting to slow. So we're seeing a lot of these, and don't forget about the layoffs in the mortgage departments, because if real estate is booming, wouldn't you hire more people to handle the amount of mortgages that are coming through? Okay, let's move on here. Now, Obama is trying to bypass Congress to enact new taxes. He's trying to put Wi-Fi in the public schools, and he's trying to sidestep Congress to do this. He's going right to the FCC, and he's going to lobby for new taxes. And I hate to tell him, he seems like he's always sidestepping, waiting for Congress to be on summer recess. Looks like he's trying to always go around the law which he took an oath to obey. And this law, which is the Constitution, is the framework of what he's supposed to follow. And you know what? If he can't follow it, he should be thrown out of office. It's like anyone getting a job. Okay, listen, you're starting this new job. Here are the law, the rules of this company. You can't steal money, and you have to go through the process of doing your paperwork and getting things done. And if you don't follow these rules, we'll fire you. So what is he doing? He's trying to cut corners and bypass the rules that are in place. And the rule that's in place is Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution clearly states, Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes. The President does not have this power. Now, we're looking at the Middle East, and things are going pretty much haywire out there. And we can see that all the Middle Eastern countries, the people are rising up. They do not want the central bankers, U.S. government, to control them anymore. So what's happening, let's go to Libya right now. The Libyan government threatens army action if protesters sell oil. And the people of Libya are, the protesters are trying to sell the crude oil independently of the government, which uses right now, I believe, the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency, and the United States controls this puppet regime. And they're trying to sidestep this because they're trying to get away from this. And we see this happening in many of the countries, especially Egypt right now, and Yemen, and Lebanon, and Tunisia, and Saudi Arabia now, and also Bahrain, which is right there. And we're seeing this happen all over the place. And it looks like, to me, that the U.S. government, central bankers, Israel, all the Western central bank countries are seeing this, and they realize they're losing the battle in Syria. And Assad is winning, and they won't be able to get into Syria without some type of action. And a couple episodes back, I reported that they're looking to lock down with a no-fly zone. A couple of countries are involved in this, and it looks like right now they are flaming and continuing this protests and this violence going in the Middle East to make it better for them. And the reason why I say this is because now the paid mercenaries are coming out of Syria and now bombing other places like in Beirut, and trying to bring the fight outside of Syria so they have anarchy all around the Middle East, and the central bankers, U.S. government, can finally say, listen, we need to go into this area and calm the situation down, and it might be a good time to bring forces or the paid troops they have, however they're going to do it, and occupy all these regions and wiggle their way into Syria. It looks like this is what they're flaming up and trying to do. And of course, Obama is, on vacation, but his statements are that the United States strongly condemns the steps taken by Egypt's government, calls for right to peaceful protest. He also says that state of emergency in Egypt should be lifted. Process of national reconciliation must begin. U.S. wants to be a partner with Egypt, is guided by national interest in this long-standing relationship, which means that we need to protect the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency and protect the Western Central Bank that is right now in Egypt. He also says we deplore violence against civilians. Oh, you mean like in Yemen when he does the drone attacks on people and sometimes they hit civilians? Interesting. Obama says Egyptian people deserve better. U.S. does not take sides in Egypt. Well, how come the U.S. government is taking sides in Syria and paying mercenaries to overthrow Assad? Obama says U.S. cooperation with Egypt cannot continue as usual. Well, of course not, because they don't know who the government is, and they're flaming this protest to bring rioting and uneasiness and anarchy to this whole entire region to get some type of war started so they can go into Syria. And also he's canceling the joint military exercises with Egypt. Well, really, don't you think the military in Egypt is a little busy and have their hands full right now with what's going on? So why would they be willing to do a drill at this time? It makes no sense whatsoever. Now, the U.S. government has a couple of ships standing by. They have the Harry S. Truman, which is an aircraft carrier, which is in the Gulf of Aden off of Yemen, right in that choke point right there. They have the Nimitz, which is an aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. And they have the Kearsarge, which is a big deck amphibious warfare ship in the Gulf of Aden near Yemen also. So they have three ships standing by. They also have troops in Jordan standing by. They also have the paid troops of, I think it was 3,000, standing by to go in and implement this no-fly zone in Syria. So they have Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, this whole area pretty much surrounded and ready for some type of action. Now, Senator Feinstein is seeking to further limit freedoms of press. She wants to rewrite the laws, and we have to remember what the First Amendment says, that Congress shall not make no law respecting the establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And she wants to go out there and define and to rewrite the Free Flow of Information Act, which defines what a media provider is and who is a journalist and who is not. And because what they're trying to do, like I've said this before, if they need to control the creation of money, they also need to control the flow of information. They do control the mainstream media. There are 5 corporations that run all the media outlets, with the Associated Press as the main news source of where they get their news. And the government pretty much has ties with all these corporations, and they feed them all the propaganda and all the news that you see on the mainstream media. And what happened was, since the internet was born, they have no control over what is being said on the alternative media. And a lot of the alternative media are now turning into radio shows. Viewers are flocking to these type of reports, and they are gaining listeners, while the mainstream media is losing listeners. And Senator Feinstein is out there, and she is looking to rewrite this. And she says that the meaning, if you are being paid, then you're protected under the law. And if you're not getting paid, you're not protected under the law, which is absolutely ridiculous, because the First Amendment is freedom of the press. It doesn't say if you get paid or not paid. How is that how is getting paid something that says that you're a real journalist or someone that can report on news? It doesn't. And of course, most of the alternative media do it for free on our own time, because we can't stand listening to the mainstream media, and we dig deeper to find out what the real story is and find out real information with things to back it up with. And they do not like this, of course. Just like John from shadowstats.com, who does and figures out the unemployment rate, GDP, inflation, using the calculation that was changed to show Americans that everything is fine. And of course, the manipulated massage numbers show a different story compared to his. He's showing unemployment at 23%, and the mainstream media is showing it at 7.4%, because they do not count the people who are no longer looking for work. And also, those people who are underemployed, they are not counted either. Yes, they are counted in the U6 numbers, but they don't report on that. They report on if you have a full-time or part-time, and if you had a full-time and you were making $100,000 a year, and now you have 2 part-time jobs, you have 2 full-time. You're counted twice as being employed, as 2 different jobs. And this is why the unemployment rate is continually dropping, and this is why they're trying to constrict and to get rid of and control who can report on information, because they have lost control, and they're starting to realize this, and they're realizing more and more people are starting to listen to the alternative media sites to get some other information than the mainstream media. Now, we know that there's a gun bill pending in the Senate. The UN Arms Treaty is pending, and they're looking to pass the UN Arms Treaty by the end of August. This is their plan. Why the Congress is on summer recess, and the UN Arms Treaty is really going to take the rights away for owning guns from each and every American. And the White House came out with their 67-page document for those people in school who are threatened by gunmen, and it gave a report of what they should do if a gunman should, be in the school. It tells you to run. It tells you to hide, and if all else fails and you can't do any of that, try to hit him with a chair, fire extinguisher, staple his fingers, or poke him in the eye with a pencil. But there was a petition that said, okay, you want gun-free zones, and we have to remember most of these incidents happen in the gun-free zones. I mean, Chicago is a gun-free zone, but it has the highest murder rate for people that don't have guns, that are using guns to create these murders. That doesn't make sense, does it? And in Connecticut, which was that area was a gun-free zone, but somebody had a gun and they went in there and they shot people. So they say. So the petition was, around Obama should be a gun-free zone. He shouldn't have the Secret Service with guns, and they shouldn't be carrying around guns. And the White House finally responded and said they rejected the petition, claiming that Obama faces serious threats every day. Well, don't our children and the people of America have threats all day long? They tell us there's terrorists everywhere, right? So we're facing threats all day long. We have to be searched before we go into a stadium. We have to be searched before we go onto a train or a plane, because we're under threat all the time. Now, why doesn't Obama use his recommendations that he gave the American people? Obama, if a gunman is trying to shoot you down, run and hide. If you can't do any of those things, and if you have a pencil in your pocket, or maybe a pen, you probably have a fancy pen, poke him in the eye. Or have one of your Secret Service men use their shoe. Why don't they follow the same guidelines they're giving us? You know why? Because it doesn't work. You know what does work? Having a weapon. That's what works. Having a weapon deters the other person, because they know, well, wait a minute, they have a weapon, so why would I be doing this? Every place that these things happen, people had no weapons. And the places that people do have weapons, the crime is almost all the time stopped before it happens. But again, the mainstream media doesn't report on that news. They only report on the news where someone got killed by a gun. They don't never report on the news where someone was saved by a gun. Now, Marine Colonel warns Homeland Security is a pre-staging gear and equipment, and is really an army to get the American people. And then I was starting to think about this, and I know the article has been all over the place, and I've seen it all over the place. And I started to think about this, and we have to go back to George W. Bush here, who said when he was talking to the terrorists, and we have to really think about, who is he really talking to at this point? You are either with us or against us. And then the DHS was born to fight terrorism. A couple things about this. They created an alert system to let us know about terrorist threats. Well, that system's always blank. If you go to the DHS and just go to Google and type in DHS early warning terrorist alert, and it'll bring you to the page and it'll show you that it's blank. So that's always blank, even during the Boston bombing, blank. And even during the terrorist threats of the Middle East, and the U.S. Travel Advisory, and they were also reporting that we might have some type of terrorist problems here in the U.S. That was still blank. So now we have to think about this. The DHS was created to stop terrorism. They didn't say which terrorism. They just said terrorism. Now, a couple episodes back, I don't know, maybe 15, 20, I reported on the mainstream media labeling certain groups in the U.S. domestic terrorists. Now, were they talking about domestic terrorists or terrorists overseas when they created the DHS? And we really have to start thinking about this because they are arming. Because let's just back up for a second. Terrorists usually plant bombs. Terrorists, as we've seen, if you believe the story, flew planes into the World Trade Center. Terrorists do not show up with an army, move onto the streets, and start taking over cities. We haven't seen that yet, but the DHS has armored tanks, millions and billions of rounds of ammunition. They have equipped their soldiers so well that it equals almost the military. And this colonel goes on to say, what's happening is Homeland Security is pre-staging gear and equipment. And what they're trying to do is use standardized vehicles, standardized equipment. I saw a picture of the marathon bombing, and there were two officers. They both had identical helmets, flak jackets, weapons, everything I wore in Iraq. What we're doing here, let's not kid about it, we're building a domestic army, and we're shrinking the military because the government is afraid of its own citizens. I don't know where we're going to use this many vehicles and this many troops. I can't believe people aren't seeing it. Is everybody blind? And we also have to go back to Obama, who said that we need a force that was separate and not controlled by the military, controlled by Obama or the president, and had no ties to any type of military organization that could work with local law enforcement. And also, we have to wonder why they called it Homeland Security. Just like the Nazis in Germany also called it Homeland. And it's a very interesting way of putting it when you're creating a force that is protecting the people from outside terrorists. Now, on September 11th of this year, Muslims plan to march on Washington. An Islamic group is planning what is called a Million Muslim March on Washington on the 12th anniversary of 9/11. The organization says that the September 11th march will be an historic event, with Muslims demanding that our civil rights be protected by our government. This could potentially be a false flag event because, right now the government is on the rampage in the Middle East. They are planning this march on 9/11, where supposedly Muslims flew into the World Trade Center and demolished it. And the Boston bombing was also the same type of trying to hook it all in. And now we have the Middle East terrorist threat, and we have to be very careful of what is going to happen at this point. I'm going to put this on the sidebar of the x22report.com, because I keep a list there of what could potentially be a false flag. And I'm not saying it's going to be. We just want to label these and keep track so we know what's going on. So if something does happen, we can refer back to say, oh yeah, look, here's the government. We knew about this. Instead of being surprised, like most of the people going, oh wow, this came out of nowhere. We didn't know anything about this. Okay. Now, George Soros has made a huge bearish bet. Now, I've been calling, and many other people have been saying that something's going to happen in the fall. I still do believe this. George Soros, and I'll just read this. Soros held 26 as of the quarter ended June 30th, holds 26,157 shares of the Standard & Poor's 500. And call options on 143,000 shares, and put options on 7,800,000 shares. So what is the significance about this move? Is that puts are used for a downside bet. He is betting that the S&P 500 drops. When will this happen? We don't know, but this is very telling, and from all the indicators and from everything that we're seeing, I do believe that something will happen during this time period. Listen, everyone. Thanks for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.